Welcome in to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to find us on any of those social media platforms, all you got to do is search Picks and Parlays. We're really easy to find. I'm also really easy to find on Twitter. Just search my name at Chelsa Messinger. That's my handle. If you want to drop me a line or a pick or a parlay or a juicy money line bet, anything of your choosing. I'm open to all suggestions within reason because I don't bet big. I just bet for fun for the most part. Today we've got a great show lined up for you guys. A lot of basketball because it's that time of year. We've got College Basketball Friday starting off Davidson at Dayton. Dayton, one of those hot teams entering the tournament. They have a long win streak going and also one of the dark horses to make some noise in the NCAA tournament. And then going into your weekend, we've got College Basketball Saturday with some of the big ones. Penn State, Iowa, a big matchup in the Big Ten. UF at Tennessee, Auburn at Kentucky, and Duke and Virginia. As an NC State fan, it's been fun to watch Duke kind of struggle as of late. This big, mighty Duke team that, granted, it's not the talent level that they're used to having, but they lost to two unranked teams in the past week, I think. They lost to NC State by 22 points and also in overtime to unranked Wake Forest. Coach K, he might be a vampire. I think he's at least 117 years old, but some of these games, I think they're getting to him. I don't think he'll ever retire, but it's got to be tough on his nerves. And also, we're talking NBA. Always some good stuff there. Last week we talked about some of the totals on these games being outrageous. I think it was the Bucks Wizards game that was set at 240. Yeah, that game went way over. It was 137 to 134. So, yeah. It appears we are back on Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. Also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You know the drill. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger if you want to shout me a pick or a parlay, something good. Let's start off the show with a little college basketball. We're talking College Basketball Friday with Craig Trapp, who is joining us to talk a little college hoops. Craig, how you doing over there?
Yeah, excited. You start building that bankroll for March Madness, and just a few days away, the calendar flips, and that gets for a handicapper. There's probably no better month out there because it seems like every day. I think the first college basketball tournament starts in less than 8 days. So excited to get in on some winners for Friday night college basketball.
Right, it's a good time of year if you're winning. Not so much if you're losing all these games.
Yeah, the good thing about college football is you don't bet them every day, so you have a long time to prepare. College basketball, if you have a bad night, just wait 12 hours and it's time to go again.
Yeah, and you can bet a full card. You can do 10 or 15 a night. So, all
Absolutely.
right. Well, let's start. Right, I certainly don't. Let's start with Davidson and Dayton. Dayton, one of those teams that's having a really good season, 26-2 on the year. Their only two losses coming at neutral sites. They're favored by 11 in this one against Davidson, who's not having the greatest of years, 15-12 on the season. Dayton, however, 2-6 against the spread in their last 8. The under has hit in 5 of the last 7. And 6 times they've been favored by double digits. They've only covered in 1 of them. So who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I think I like Davidson here getting all the points. This Dayton team just looks like a team that, not saying they're going to lose outright, but that maybe is starting to believe the hype, a little bit. They keep eking up in the rankings, and this last week, I think Dayton is ripe for an upset. I think it's going to be Rhode Island that beats them. I think that's next week, I think it is. But I think this is a dangerous spot for Dayton here. So I like Davidson plus the 11. Like you said, Dayton, they were a 13.5-point favorite. Duquesne, did not cover, only won by 10. They were a 12-point favorite against George Mason. They only won by 7, didn't cover. And then the last game before that against Massachusetts, they were a 13-point favorite by 8. So their last 3 games when they're double digits or more, they didn't cover in any of them. I think that's the similar trend tonight. Let's take Davidson plus the 11, and I might even sprinkle just a small bet on the money line. Like I said, I do think Dayton's going to probably lose before the NCAA tournament. I do think it'll be Rhode Island the next few games when they play Rhode Island, but I think Davidson has a decent shot here.
And sometimes that's even a good thing for some of these teams, because I don't know if you'd even want a huge winning streak heading into the tournament, just because, I don't know. I just think it's a mental thing.
Well, it keeps,
let's move on.
As a coach, you'd like to, use that as motivation that these kids to practice harder and to pay attention in the film room and all that kind of stuff. So yes, as a coach, it's not such a bad thing before the tournament if you maybe lose one, and that's not really going to hurt the ranking. I think they're going to be a 3 seed coming in NCAA tournament unless they lose multiple games here down the stretch.
Right, because we have to remember that we're talking about some teenage kids here. It's kids 18 to 22, and so sometimes they can get a little overconfident. Moving on to Wright State and Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky is favored at home in this one, -3.5. The total is 145 and a hook. Wright State is 24-6 on the season, but 13-13-2 against the number. Northern Kentucky, meanwhile, 21-8, 16-11 against the spread. The last meeting, 95-63. Wright State winning that one at home as a 4-point favorite. Do we like Wright State to win again, or do we like Northern Kentucky at home?
Well, of course, this is very close. Actually, I live in Cincinnati. This is actually closer than both Xavier and Cincinnati. It's just, in the tri-state area here. And Northern Kentucky is a lot bigger school than what people realize. They've been very good the last 2 years. Of course, John Penning got the Cincinnati job after 2 years, taking them to the tournament 2 straight years. They've just been in Division I, I think, 4, maybe even 5 years. But they have made a big splash. They've really kind of dominated this league until this year. Not that they've been bad this year, but Wright State has been the king of this conference this year. The one problem for Wright State has been on the road, but a lot of those road against the spread losses were as big favorites. Of course, they're underdog here. I like Wright State getting the 3.5 points. I think this is a nip and tuck game. I don't think Northern Kentucky, they have not been killing people. I mean, they beat Youngstown State by 2 points last time out. Youngstown State is not a very good team. So I think this is going to be a really close game. I would think that 3.5 points would be very good. I also think maybe even sprinkle the money line. Like you said, the first matchup, they dominated. So definitely a revenge factor here, but maybe Wright State has a little something because, like I said, NKU has gotten away and won the tournament the last 2 years and got that automatic bid for the conference. So maybe Wright State has a little something for them here. Let's take the 3.5 points, though, just in case.
All right, moving on to a bigger line. Washington State at Washington. Washington favored in this one as 9.5-point home favorites. The total is 137 and a hook. Wazoo actually won at home 79-67 last meeting as 3-point underdogs. Who do we like in this one?
It's hard to take this Washington State team, even though in a rivalry I like getting double digits no matter who or where it's being played. But Washington State did not look good against Stanford, losing by 18 points last time out. Lost by 9 to not a very good Cal team. Lost by 19 the time before that at USC. All 3 of those were against the spread losses as double-digit favorites. So, but I do think in a rivalry game, you kind of can throw that out a little bit. Like you said, you also have that Washington State did win in an upset at home as a home underdog in the opening game of this. So the second game, I do think Washington gets the win and gets a little revenge in that stake. But I just think it's a little too many points. I also think the under is a very solid play here. This Washington State team has not been scoring very easily. They've scored 57, 57, and 51 the last 3 games. So under 137.5. In fact, the under might be my best play in this one. I just think it's going to be that low scoring a game. I think Washington State knows they cannot outscore people. They need to win in the 60s or at least try to keep this in the 60s to stay close. So I would take the under one as the top play, and then a little less on as far as strength. I would take Washington State plus the 10 points.
Some of these upset games, I look at their shooting percentage from the field, because sometimes If it's a crazy number, they're probably not going to repeat it. But the last time they won, they shot 38% from the field, which is, not that great. So definitely repeatable. And, well, Washington State's lost 4 in a row, though. So that scares me a little bit. But Washington, they just snapped a 9-game losing streak. And they were favored in 4 of those. So I think Washington might be getting a little bit more credit than they deserve.
Yeah, well, Washington, that's a tough place to play. No matter where you're coming from, obviously they're not coming from as far as a lot of the Pac-12 teams come, but Washington State is very familiar there. I think in a rivalry game, double digits is just a little too much. Like you said, Washington was on a long losing streak as well. It's not like they've been lighting it up. I mean, they lost to Stanford at home by 8 before they did end that losing streak against Cal last time out. So this is not like this Washington team's world beater. Let's take Washington State plus 10 and the under 137.5.
Oh, you have him at 10. I had him at 9 and a hook. So yeah, double digits, especially in a rivalry. It's tough.
Tough to pass up. And I know, coming from Cincinnati, you get the Xavier-Cincinnati rivalry. This Washington State rivalry, people outside of the West Coast, this is a really big rivalry during football season. The Apple Cup, it's hated up there. So I expect this to be very physical. I think it'll be a lot lower scoring than the first matchup, and Washington will win, but I just don't think they cover.
All right, we want to thank Craig Trapp for joining us. And if you didn't catch all of his picks, we'll recap you in the show. Don't worry if you want to grab a pen and paper. But after the break, we're talking even more college basketball. The big matchups come this weekend on Picks and Parlays. If you stick with us after the break. Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All of your favorite social media platforms, we've got you covered. You can also head to our website, picksandparlays.net. We've got all kinds of good stuff there, specials, sales, insight, analysis, you name it. Rolling right along with the show, we're talking even more college basketball. Let's talk the big Saturday matchups because we've got some really good ones. We're joined now by Chip Chirimbes to talk some of these big basketball matchups. Hello, Chip.
Hey, Chelsa, how you doing?
Doing good. Let's take a look at some of these numbers and these matchups. Chip's my favorite when it comes to talking about some of these line movements and some of the numbers, because you can learn a lot just by looking at the numbers. It doesn't even have to do sometimes with the basketball game itself. You can learn a lot by what Vegas knows. Starting off with the big one, Penn State, Iowa, a big top 25 matchup. In this one, number 16 Penn State is on the road at number 18 Iowa. Iowa favored at home, -3 in this one. Who do we like, or what is the play?
I think that Penn State has had such a great year this year, and they just won a non-cover game the night before. They beat Rutgers on Wednesday. This Penn State team, 21-7, 16-11 against the number, has already defeated this Iowa team at home as they were 3-point favorites. They won 89-86 earlier this season. Iowa's had a great season, but both these clubs, Iowa's at 19-9, 14-1 at home. I think the number is fair, Chelsea, but I think that Penn State has really got a little mojo working for them. The way they had a huge lead against Rutgers and then had to come back and win by 1, and after blowing a 20-point lead. So I think they'll be a little bit more serious and a little bit more focused here, even though they're on the road. I like Penn State. They're 6-4 on the road straight up. I think they have a chance to win this one as well.
Penn State also looking for their 5th straight win against ranked opponents, so they played really well against good teams. And also, I think their stock might have cooled off a bit after losing to Illinois and Indiana. But sometimes in the sports betting world, you can get more value on teams that their stock's a little down.
Well, you're absolutely right about the value. And one thing we've seen this year in particular, particularly on the college level, shall we say, is that every team hits a lull. You mentioned how Duke is not the formidable squad that they've been in the past. And the only teams that haven't taken a dive are Dayton, like Greg said, and Baylor, who just got beat by Kansas. But how shameful is that after winning 23 in a row? Kansas is going to probably be a number 1 seed, and most likely Baylor as well. So these teams do hit these spots where, like you said, they're 19 years old, and sometimes we're not aware of they may actually have exams, or they may have some issues which say wear them down during the course of the year, and then they'll try and catch their second wind. So I like this game. I like the Big Ten here, and the Big Ten's been great all year. It's had great balance and competition, and I think Penn State is a little bit better than Iowa.
Just to show the other side, just for clarity, I think maybe Iowa's favored here just because they're at home. They're a good squad, top 25 team, and they've won their past 12 home games in a row. So pretty good atmosphere over there.
No question, Chelsea. 14-1 straight up on the season at home. And if you're laying 3, you really need a 3-point basket to win, or maybe to get by. But covering's another story, and we'll see. I think Penn State's defense.
In this one, -1 on the road at Tennessee. Florida is coming off a big win over LSU, 81-66. So a really good LSU squad. Tennessee back-to-back road losses to Arkansas and Auburn, but now they're back at home. Who do we like in this one?
Well, this Florida team, I told you last week, I think we were working how this team always gets me one way or another. And here they had over LSU our last time out. They were very impressive. They dominated the play the entire time. They've won 4 of the last 5 with their last loss against Kentucky. And that's no shame either, losing to Kentucky. I think they didn't cover. They got beat by 7, I believe it was. Tennessee is 0-3 in their last 3 out there. They are 12-6 against the number at home. I think the Volunteers might have the Gators number, Chelsea. They always seem to be able to get up for this team. They've won 7 of their last 8 in the SEC, or they are 7-8 in the SEC this year. This is the first meeting of the season. The line being so shallow as it is, with Florida being ranked or having been ranked, and Tennessee never even smelling the top 20, I think maybe Tennessee's looking for their 4th straight upset.
Right. I think that's what stuck out to me, is why is the number so small? And I think sometimes in basketball, and a lot of sports, it's a matchup game, and it seems like Tennessee has Florida's number. I don't know why. You say this is their first matchup this year, which that's worth noting, because it's a different team every year in college basketball. But sometimes it can be a mental thing when one team owns another. In football, it's Florida that's been owning Tennessee. So right. I know the opposite end of that, but yeah, the line looks a little shallow to me.
This happens in college all the time, where certain teams have, like you said, another team's number. I know Penn State in Maryland, 35, and of course the Volunteers, whenever they have to go up against Auburn, that's always an in-state. I mean, Vanderbilt, that's always an in-state battle. Right. So, the college game, and these kids, who knows why? Who knows why? But they seem to get up for certain clubs and just seem to struggle against others.
Right. All right. Well, let's stay in the SEC. Let's go to Auburn and Kentucky. Both these teams are ranked. Auburn number 15, Kentucky number 8. Kentucky is favored in this one, -5. They have not lost. Kentucky hasn't lost since February 1st. But guess who beat them? Auburn. Who do we like?
At Auburn. Well, they've won 7 in a row, and they've covered 6 of the last 7. We're talking about the Wildcats, who are 16-2 at home this year. This Auburn team started out 16-0, and they had a great run. They got up to number 4 in the nation. And what happens? They go to Alabama, their arch rivals, and Alabama waylays them. They've gone 8-4 since. They are 5-4 on the road, but only 13-15 against the number. The Tigers' problem, the Auburn's problem, has been shooting the basketball. They rebound strong. They play great defense. They're very well coached. They have won the last 2 meetings, and 77-71 at Kentucky last year in overtime. And of course, the game we mentioned this year at home, they already took care of the Wildcats, but they're 11-4 in SEC action, and Kentucky's 13-2 in SEC action. This number 5, Kentucky has revenge on their mind, but Auburn's coming to play as well. I think they'll keep this one close.
All right, and finally, we've got Duke, Virginia. Duke, the number 7 team in the land. Virginia, the defending national champions. They're not ranked, but they should get some credit for that. Granted, they did lose a lot from that team that won it all last season. Duke,
Yep.
I think I said this, but they're -4 in this one, coming off a collapse to Wake Forest, where they lost in overtime to an unranked Wake Forest team, and also a couple games ago losing to NC State by 22 points. So their stock is certainly not up, but still a very talented team. What's the play you like in this one?
Well, Chelsea, after that loss to NC State, and I actually watched that game, and they were completely dominated. I expected Duke or the Blue Devils to actually come back with a better performance against Wake Forest. They go overtime and just get beat. What was it, 113, 101, or something along those lines?
Mm-hmm.
They've lost the last two on the road, have the Blue Devils, and they're not going to get a #1 seed this year, and neither is Virginia at 20-7. Both teams, both ACC schools here have had a competition between these two. At home, Virginia's 13-3. Duke is favored here, and this bothers me because I think Virginia is playing out the string. They know they're not going to get a #1 seed. I think Virginia at home is the hot club getting the points. I think the public here, maybe the odds maker, are misreading the depth of Duke and probably expecting them to bounce back after those consecutive losses. I don't see it here. I can see Virginia's defense keeping this one close.
Right. If you just look at recent form alone, it's definitely Virginia that's been the better squad. They've won 5 in a row, and coming on a big rivalry win over Virginia Tech, 56-53. Virginia, not a team that scores a whole lot of points, but somehow they've made it work. Last 2 games versus ranked opponents, they've split, a loss to Louisville, and a home win over a good Florida State squad. So they do play up to competition occasionally.
Yeah. Well, they won the national championship last year after knocking on the door so many seasons, and Virginia was always the disappointing team, which comes in with #1 ranked defense year after year, and they get to the Elite Eight and then get beat, or they make it to the Final Four. And last year, the way things fell, it was a great season for them, and they earned it. They even covered in the finals. So the Cavaliers this year, I think they have the hangover from having won the national champion, having accomplished something they hadn't done before. We've seen North Carolina, Duke, and these other perennial schools get there year in and year out, and they're used to being there. But I think that Virginia here is little, riding on their laurels or patting themselves on the back of what a great season they had. But like you said before, every year in college basketball is a brand new season. And if you look at Kentucky, their top 5, 7, 8 guys are brand new every year. So you have so many people departing for the pros and so much changeover to one and dones. I mean, that's what we had with Zion Williamson. And then look what's happening to North Carolina now. So, excuse me. But
all right, we got to wrap it up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I lost my place.
That's okay. We get going when we talk basketball with Chib. We're back after the break talking NBA on Picks and Parlays.
Thank you, Chelsa.
Welcome back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. Also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, all your favorite social media platforms. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter. My handle, just my name, at Chelsa Messinger. We've got even more basketball to dive into right now. We're getting to NBA rapid fire picks, where we've got Tony T and Craig Trapp joining us to talk a little NBA. Hello, gentlemen.
How we doing, Chelsea?
Hi, Chelsea.
All right, let's get right to it. Starting off with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks, one of the best teams in basketball, especially according to the record, 50-8 on the season. but just 34-24 on the season when it comes to against the spread. Meanwhile, the Thunder have been one of those teams that have really been good against the number, 38-20 against the spread. So this one, the Bucks are favored minus 10.5. The total is 229. Craig, we'll start with you. What's your play?
Well, this Thunder team has been money against the spread on the road. 21-6 against the spread on the road. I mean, that is rare air for a team in the NBA as far as betting is concerned. I think you just can't ignore that. I know the Thunder have been a little banged up, but I still think the Thunder have enough to cover the double digits here. You know, the Bucks continue to have these huge spreads against them, and that's the reason why they're only 17-12 against the spread, but at home, that is. But I like the Thunder here getting all these points. I think they lose, but I think they do cover and keep it within 5 to 7 points here.
All right, Tony, what's your pick?
Yeah, I'm with Craig here. I'll take the Thunder plus a 10.5. You know, they've covered all 8 games in back-to-back spots this season. And of course, as one thing I like about them is they've covered 10 of their past 11 on the road against teams with winning records at home. So they face good teams on the road, and they still cover those games. And they're shooting the ball very well here. Looking over their past 5 games, 51% shooting, 42% from 3. Look, I like the Bucks, but I think it's a little too many points here. One thing I like here with OKC, I like Steven Adams. I like the defensive presence he has in the paint with that big wingspan. I'll take the points here with OKC.
All right, next up, we've got the Timberwolves at the Magic. The Magic favored at home, and this one -8. The total is 236. Timberwolves 17-40 on the year, 20-35-2 against the spread. Magic 26-32, 25-31-2 against the number. Craig, who do you like? What's the play?
Well, this is an ugly versus ugly. You know, Minnesota's just been a very good team this year, and you know, it's hard to lay the 7.5 with a team like the Magic, though, that don't score a lot of points. I just think the Timberwolves, you know, since getting Russell from the Warriors, I think that is a game changer for them. I think it finally gives them 2 guys that play well together, and I think the Wolves do enough to cover this big number. I just think the Magic aren't a good enough offensive team to win at home. So let's take the T-Wolves here plus 7.5. It's not one of my favorite bets on the night, so don't go crazy on this game.
All right, Tony, do you like this game a little more than Craig?
Well, when you say Timberwolves, I say over. I mean, it's over 236. Remember their big man Karl Anthony Towns is out, so they have really no rim defender. And you saw that game against Dallas. I mean, oh my goodness, it looked like D-leaguers trying to play defense. They played over in 4 straight, 7 of their past 8 after combining for 255 points against Miami. Now Orlando was, believe it or not, you look at their season-long numbers, but look at the recency here. Orlando has played over in 5 straight, 7 of 8 after combining for 250 points at a bad defensive team in Atlanta. You know, as we talked about teams, they don't defend. They're giving up 51% shooting over that past 5. But, you know, Orlando's got the offense going a little bit here. Look at their past 5 games, averaging 120 points, hitting on 47%. Go over in this one.
All right. We talked about that being a bit of a trend in the NBA. Some of these overs reaching unreal numbers. All right, let's move on to the Nets and the Hawks. These aren't 2 great teams either. Nets 26-31 on the year, 27-30 against the spread. Hawks 17-43 straight up, 27-32-1 against the number. The Nets are -2 in this one on the road. Total is 233 and a hook. The over is hitting 15 of the last 20 for the Hawks. Anybody like that one? Let's start with you, Craig. What's your play on this one?
You hit that on the nail on the head. You know, this Hawks defense is like non-existent. I mean, I've seen 5th grade basketball games, teams play better defense than this Hawks team. I know Trae Young is not going to get in the way of anybody, but I mean, it's like he just wants the other team to score so he can get the ball back and go down and jack up another shot. So I think you have to take the over 233.5. You know, I'm surprised how good Brooklyn has been when Kyrie hasn't played. So I'm kind of leaning towards the Nets as well. But to me, I think the much stronger play, just take the over and watch the Hawks' terrible defense give up 120, 125 points again. And this one goes well over the total.
That seems to be the trend for the young NBA stars because everybody lives in the highlight age. Everybody wants to make the highlights. And fundamental good defense, you know, it's not going to go viral on Instagram. So they like shooting these threes from half court. But that is neither here nor there. Tony T, what do you like on this Nets-Hawks game?
Well, you say Hawks, I say over. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, they sit near the bottom of the league in defensive efficiency. They played to over in 17 of their past 29 at home, and they've given up 124 points or greater in 6 of their past 7. The Nets put up 113 or greater in 2 of 3. Again, you say Hawks, I say over. I'm going to go over the total in this one. And one thing to note, a lot of young players in the leagues, they just don't have the bodies to play defense. If you saw the Grizzlies and Lakers game, you saw that. You saw how you can't play defense. You can't put a body in front of these guys. You don't have enough muscle around your bones. It's going to hurt. So go over when I hear Hawks.
Yeah, unless you're talking about Zion, who is the fact that there's a rumor that he's 300 pounds, which what he does with that body is absolutely incredible from a basketball standpoint. I digress. Let's get on to the Kings and the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies -4 at home in this one. Total is 229.5. The Grizzlies have been struggling lately. They've lost 4 in a row. Ja Morant has shown his frustration to the media. It's a team that's frustrated and hoping to get back on the right track. I guess playing at home to a Kings team that's not very good might be the ticket. Craig, who do you like?
Yeah, I just think the Grizzlies are going in the wrong direction. This Kings team going in the right direction, 6-3 against the spread and straight up in the last 9. I think this Sacramento Kings wins outright. Well, I'll take the 4 points just because you see so many times in the NBA. It's like baseball that almost all the games seem like they went in and one run. It seems like the NBA, you have tons that end in 2 or 3. So if you give me over that 3, give me that 3.5 or 4, I'm almost always going to take it. I'll take the Kings. I think they win outright, though, in Memphis here.
And they won the last meeting outright as home dogs, 129-125. Tony T, what's the play you're eyeing on this game?
Yeah, I'm with Craig. I'm going to take the Sacramento Kings plus the 4. Luke Walton's coaching for his job, so there's some motivation here. And one thing to note here, they have covered 6 of 8 in back-to-back spots this season. And the Kings just a better shooting form right now, 38% from 3. They're a really good three-point shooting team, so even if they're behind, the back door is going to be wide open. And one thing to note here with Memphis is they're dealing with injuries. Jarrett Jackson, Grayson Allen, Brandon Clark, all out. They accounted for 36 points and 12 rebounds a game. That's a lot here. There's not a lot of depth on this Memphis. Give me the Kings plus the 4.
Next up, we've got the Washington Wizards at the Utah Jazz. Jazz favoring this one -10.5. Total is 230. The Wizards, not a great team, 21-36 on the year, but they have covered in some of the recent ones. I know that Bucks Wizards game we talked about last week, that was 137-134. What an over game. I think the total on that one was 240, so that one went way over. Meanwhile, the Jazz are 36-22 on the year, but they have a losing record against the spread at home. Craig, who do you like?
If you would have told me this Jazz team at any point of the season was going to be 4-6 in a 10-game stretch, I'd be like, you're crazy, because I thought heading into the year this Jazz team was going to be the top three defensive team, and they were much improved what it looked like on paper on offense. And I think that offensive improvement has been shown, but the defense hasn't always been there, the consistency at least. And that spells trouble against a Wizards team that can score. Like you said last week against the Bucks, they put up points at will. Bradley Beal shooting and playing out of his mind on offense. I like the Beal and the Wizards here getting the 10.5 points. I think it's just too many points for a Jazz team that's just 3-7 against the spread in the last 10 games.
Tony T, too many points, or do you like the total of this one?
Well, you say Wizards, I say over. I mean, go again here with the over in this team. Defensively on the road, they've given up 123 points a game, giving up 50% shooting. Yes, the Jazz, they've been struggling defensively. Looking at their numbers, have been terrible. 49% shooting allowed, 43% from 3 over their past 5 games. But they are providing some offense here. One thing to note here, the Wizards have gone over in 18 of their 27 road games. You say Wizards, I say over.
A lot of overs from Tony T. I like it. Those are more fun when you're pulling for the over. It's nothing worse when you have the under and somebody jacks up a 3 at the last second. Finally, we've got the Denver Nuggets at the LA Clippers. Clippers -5.5 point favorites at home in this one. 218.5 is the total in this one. Nuggets 40-18 on the year. Clippers 39-19. The under is actually hit for the Clippers 5 of their last 6. The Nuggets won their last meeting in Denver, 114-104 as 1-point home dogs. Craig, what's the play?
Well, since this Clippers team 2 games back got healthy, they've really been good. And I think you're going to see that continue here. Now, the question is, can they cover this big a spread? Because 5.5 points against a Denver team that actually has percentage points is just a little bit ahead of the Clippers here. That's a lot tougher card, but I think you have to ride the hot hand at this point. I do think the Clippers, they look across, up in the rafters and they see the Lakers, and the big brother syndrome is always there. They want to one-up the Lakers. Of course, Steve Ballmer has brought that to the Clippers and brought them legitimacy, and Kawhi Leonard and George, of course, as well, them coming over this year. I like Doc Rivers and company to keep it going here. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think it's about a 7-point win, so it's going to be right on that number. You're going to have to sweat this one out. Let's take the Clippers -5.5.
All right, Tony T, what's the play?
Yeah, whenever you look at the Clippers, look at that injury report, and you got Beverly Leonard and George playing. That's a clean injury report. I'm with Craig here. You got to take the Clippers laying 5.5. I think that loss to Sacramento Kings was a wake-up call for this team. They realized, hey, we got less than 2 months left in the regular season. We got to get our act together. We got to get our team fine-tuned for the playoffs. And I think this is a good test for them here. One thing to note here, Nuggets in recent step-up games dropped the 12-point decision at OKC, lost at home to the Lakers. But one thing to note, look at the Nuggets defense on the road. They're allowing over 46% shooting. We know the Clips, when their heads in the game, they defend. So I'm going to take the Clippers here, laying the 5.5.
No over on that one?
No over. Nope.
All right. That wraps. Oh, yeah, that's true. All right. That wraps up our NBA rapid fire segment. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
I think that, Chelsea, on this one of the keys in this game is, the Clippers, they do not want to have to face the Lakers until the Western Conference Finals. So this is a pretty big win since they're percentage points behind this Denver team. They want to be the 2 seed. Well, the one, they'd like to be the 1, but most likely will be the 2 seed behind the Lakers. So this game is a little important because, of course, like you said, Denver did beat them last time out head-to-head.
Right. It'll be interesting
something for the Clippers.
Go ahead.
Is you don't want to play too many games in the playoffs in the Mile High, because that will definitely take a toll. So you definitely want home court in that series. You got to take care of business, and we'll see if the Clippers can finally remember their biggest nemesis under Doc Rivers was winning playoff games at home. Remember that they've always had trouble doing that. We'll see with the Paul group, but we'll see now with the Kawhi crew if they can fix that in the postseason.
All right, and now we'll wrap it up. Always good insight from those two. That's our segment. We're back after the break on Picks and Parlays. Stick with us. Back to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network. Also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You know the drill. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. I'm back. And I've got all of the picks from today's show. I've got them in a nice little package ready to go in case you weren't paying attention, or if you just want a nice little recap. We started off with College Basketball Friday picks from Craig Trapp. Davidson at Dayton. He likes Davidson. To cover that big number, +11. Wright State at Northern Kentucky, taking Wright State at +3.5. Washington taking the under at 137 and a hook. Chip Chirimbes gave us some college basketball plays for this Saturday. Penn State, Iowa, taking Penn State in that big conference matchup, +3. Florida at Tennessee, taking Tennessee. In that one, Auburn, Kentucky, taking Auburn, +5. Duke, UVA, taking Virginia, +4, the defending national champs. And finally, NBA, rapid fire. Craig Trapp gave us some picks here. Thunder at Bucks, taking the Thunder, +10.5. Wizards at Jazz, take the Wizards, +10.5. Timberwolves, Magic, take the T-Wolves, +7.5. And finally, Tony T gave us his NBA rapid fire picks as well. Thunder Bucks taking the Thunder at +10.5. Kings at Grizzlies take the Kings +4. Wizards Jazz take the over to hit 230. Nuggets Clippers taking the Clippers minus 5.5. Timberwolves Magic, he likes the over in that one as well at 236. And then finally, Nets at Hawks, take the over at 233.5. Is that enough basketball picks for you? I hope so, because that's our show. It's been another great show. Thanks for joining us. We're here every weekday, and also head to picksandparlays.net for all of your sports betting needs. We're back tomorrow. See you guys later.